Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Samurai Goomba, and today I'd like to talk to you all about Moviebob. Moviebob is a reviewer for The Escapist. He has a video series for practically anything he wants to talk about. He has The Big Picture, where it's just sort of whatever he wants to talk about, a free talking show. He has Escape to the Movies, which is a weekly movie review show. And on another website, he has the game Overthinker, and then, of course, the game Anthinker, and we'll talk about that quite a bit, trust me. So why am I talking about Moviebob? Well, there's a lot of media out there about that guy with the glasses, and Spoonie, especially, and Linkara, and these internet nobodies, and there's a lot of dissenting opinions about them, and that always makes me happy, because I like to see criticism. It doesn't matter how good a show is, it can always be criticized, and it can always improve, and that applies to this show too. But I've noticed with Moviebob that it's really hard to find criticism of him outside of The Escapist. Moviebob I find to be a lot more irritating than a lot of reviewers. I really can't stand the guy sometimes. And it's hard to say exactly why without just going into a whole diatribe or a rant. Part of what I find so frustrating about him is he seems like a really nice guy in person. When he writes his articles, I get a sense that there's some humility behind the voice, and that he doesn't consider himself above his fans. But when I look at his work and I look at some of the things he says, he doesn't really seem any better to me than a lot of the more trollish internet reviewers out there who are really just trying to rile their fan bases up. He also does that whole that guy with the glasses thing where if you don't like his work, well, guess what? You shouldn't watch it, and you shouldn't give your opinion on why it should improve because, you know, his review is just his opinion. He can't have your opinion after all. Yeah. So in the interest of providing more fair and balanced coverage of Moviebob, and as I've noticed when you search YouTube, all you can really find are videos that talk about how great he is. There's the one response to his Metroid Other M review, which caused so much ire when it first came out, because he basically said that Japan was incapable of being racist or something, or that like Other M stories was extremely deep. I know he tried to accuse people of racism though, for not liking it. So let's get right into my ranting points. My first problem is the big picture itself. No, not the big picture. I mean the show The Big Picture, which is about the big picture, but which really isn't about the big picture, because it's kind of a little picture if you want to talk about it. It's really just the game Overthinker, but more general subjects. Whatever. The big picture. This show is problematic to me on many levels. Game Overthinker worked well. It had like a structure. It was about games. Escape to the Movies worked well. It had a structure. It was about movies. With the big picture, you're never really sure what you're getting, and one of the problems I have with this is that Bob Chipman, he's not a Renaissance man. He can't give an opinion on everything, and his opinion won't always be relevant or even accurate. In one episode of The Big Picture, Moviebob claimed PCs were dying because consoles were getting more powerful and laptops were also getting more powerful. The problem with this reasoning: by the Wikipedia and dictionary definition, a laptop is a personal computer and a PC, however you slice it. So Moviebob was blatantly redefining what words mean to make his point seem like it was correct, which it wasn't. Another problem I have with Moviebob is all the projecting he does. It's easy to see when he criticizes games or society, politics, movies, anything really. It's really obvious when his own biases come to the forefront. And I don't mean the biases that we all have. I don't mean like our own preferences. What I mean is when he's projecting things that happened in his childhood or his adolescence, when it's really obvious that you can see like, this is how this guy grew up. And not only are these the things he values, but it's really kind of sad to the degree which these seem to have an impact in his life. He talks about jock and jock stereotypes with such venomous hatred that it really makes one think that he probably had a lot of bad experiences as a child as a result of this. Now, I'm not analyzing his reviews very deeply. I'm not putting a lot of effort into this, and yet it's totally obvious to me when these sorts of things fly out and hit me in the face. And is this really the way it should be when you're a professional, quote-unquote professional journalist or reviewer? Should you really be slapping your audience in the face with your own hang-ups? I don't know. It's something that's always bothered me about Moviebob when he talks about how the 80s was so awesome. I think the 80s was awesome too, but the difference is I wasn't alive for it. So I mean, for me, nostalgia isn't really as big an issue. Another point about Moviebob is he really comes across as a blatant and unapologetic Japanophile. In the extreme, really. He white knights Nintendo all the time, talking about how, Nintendo characterization is like, and Japanese companies in general are like more diverse, the games are better, and look at Western gaming, it's just got a few stereotypes of characters, and the Japanese characters, it's every spectrum under the rainbow, every character you can think of, it's everything, and this Western gaming. It's just got a few stereotypes and just a few kind of genres of games. And I hate those games because those are the games those jock kids play. And they gave me a swirly when I was in high school. But at the same time, he excuses a lot from the Japanese. Like, he defends accusations of sexism leveled at Japanese companies. I think it's pretty funny that anyone is willing to defend accusations of racism or sexism, defend Japanese companies, because honestly, guys, take a look at the world as a larger picture and take a look at Japan and how they see the world. When you have a monoculture, it's pretty hard not to be hung up on race and sex issues. Just saying. I mean, Bob actually defended accusations of racism in Resident Evil 5 when it was just, beefy slab Chris Redfield going around killing all the black dudes in their tribal outfits and stuff. Like, even Yahtzee couldn't get on board with that. But then Bob will pull a flip and be talking about Halo and trying to insert racism into Halo, where we've got made-up alien races, and he's like talking about Covenant and the UNSC, and he's talking about Halo is like encouraging racism and all this stuff. He really comes across as a blatant troll sometimes, just trying to rile his fan base up and get more views. Now, a while ago, Angry Bob created the game Anthinker. This started a chain reaction of hatred. Not surprising, because it was really just a straw man for everyone who's ever criticized Bob. Great job there. Yeah, he condenses all his opinions all his straw man opinions that he thinks other people think about him, but it's not really what they think, it's just what he needs them to think so he can be right, which, by the way, is the focus of every Big Picture episode. I wanted to let you guys know that, too. He brings in this, straw man. It's him with jock clothes, or what he thinks jock clothes look like, and he puts on, more of an obnoxious accent and talks about stuff, but he gives the opinion of everyone who disagrees with him, but phrases it in a way that it not only is not a fair representation of their opinion, but it makes them sound like an idiot. So basically a straw man argument, and that's the entire premise for the show, the game Anthinker. And to round things out, just a fun little tidbit about Bob, he is a huge attention whore, and actually really any kind of whore. Because you see with Bob, he has done so many crossovers with so many people. He loves the crossover attention, man. He's been on stuff with Yahtzee and talks about how he thinks Yahtzee is one of the greatest reviewers out there of our generation or whatever. He's done the extra consideration articles. He'll really be in any place that the Escapist wants to put him, and they seem to want to put him everywhere. He's got 3 or 4 shows. He's got 2 or 3 crossover things he does. He is a huge attention whore, and not only that, but when you leave a comment on his video, man, he reads them all. He loves it. But hey, I don't begrudge him this. At least he admits to it. In a way, I like Bob, and I don't like him. That is to say, in a way, I despise Bob for all that he represents to reviewing. The idea that you can be an unprofessional hack who simply represents their own opinion, and then when somebody else tries to give a critique of what you've said, you then turn them into a ridiculous straw man and create a big internet drama over it where there really doesn't need to be one. In that sense, I despise him. But as a person, I think if I met Bob at a bar or at a store or something, he'd probably be a cool guy. I mean, he doesn't seem to have so much of the ego. It's just that he really likes the attention. He really projects a lot. He defends Japan too much when they really don't need it. And I don't know, that pretty much finishes things up for me. I just wanted to vent a little bit about Moviebob. Another big problem I have with Moviebob is not so much a problem I have with him, but with the website. Moviebob brings in a lot of content to the Escapist, as does Yahtzee and Extra Credit people. All those guys bring in a lot of stuff, and I know Yahtzee gets paid enough. He definitely has no money problems as long as he's on the Escapist. I have to wonder if the people on the Escapist deserve any money for what they're really doing. You know what I'm saying? I have to wonder if people who aren't creating content deserve to reap so much of the money. People like Russ Pitts aren't doing much. And I know that sounds harsh, and I'm sure he'd be happy to talk about all the stuff that he is doing and how busy he is, but really all they do is keep the site afloat. It's an internet site. They manage people across the country. They just send somebody an email or whatever, or this is all they have to do really, and say, do some work, and the guy comes back and he brings you something, and you put it online, and you get views, and you sell the ad money and all that. The Escapist has this faux air that just disgusts me. Like, they're not professionals, and Moviebob's a good example of why they're not. They carry themselves like they have just this big, oh yes, I am so big, man. They're just like, I am such hot stuff right now. And I admit that for Yahtzee, if Yahtzee wants to go around with a big ego about his accomplishments, he has every right to, but nobody else on that site does. Anyway, this is Samurai Goomba, and I've taken up enough of your time, so I will say goodbye, and I hope that you've enjoyed this little mini rant on Moviebob. It will not be the start of a series of rants. At least I hope not. So goodbye, and God bless.